get into a mindset where you just pull the trigger or you don't pull the trigger. And there's a million different ways you can approach markets that have upside, than to do that.
Yeah. Are you clicking
You
a
know,
pen right now?
yeah. So it picks that up pretty good.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
that
that was quick. Welcome to Hedge Heads, where we discuss the commodity markets, news, and anything related to trading. Remember, risk of loss in trading commodity interest can be substantial. These are opinions only, not trading advice. There are no crystal balls. We don't know where the market's going, but we always have some ideas. I'm Ryan Tunkseth. He's John Prishman. Well, John, we are setting history here at Hedge Heads, our first remote broadcast. I
yes,
feel it's necessary to remind people that we are not professional podcasters. We are professional fishermen. No, not that either. Predictors of the
we're
future.
not professional yet,
Yet, good point. Well, I
but pretty soon, I think.
I've been down here in Arizona taking care of my parents and a few issues here. It's been a wonderful over 100 degrees all 5 days I've been here, so absolutely lovely out. How's it been back in Fergus Falls, Minnesota?
Very up and down. I mean, when you look at the weather, I mean, you can't complain compared to what we've been dealing with for the last few years up here. You look at the fields, and I remember distinctly as I was fishing, I think it was May 4th last year, or it's May 4th or 6th. There was a snowbank in a field in South Dakota. I was fishing on the border waters there. And I remember the ground not really being thawed out and fishing being really slow because they weren't even spawning yet. So we're full 3 weeks ahead of last year, maybe 4 weeks as far as planting goes. And I've been talking to a lot of guys in a lot of different directions. And the common theme, except for the Ohio Valley, is things are moving. Now, I think today it started in the Ohio Valley, or like Illinois. I just got off the phone with a guy there, and he said he saw plenty of people rolling, not sure what's going on. That's been the slowest region, but we're right on pace. You have to like the spring that we have so far. You have rain's coming, so everybody's in go 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 mode, but the technology is impressive, and I hear good things.
So let's talk about that. I mean, planters are rolling. We got guys out. I saw the planting report doubled again, went from 6% planted to 12% planted yesterday. What's that mean for my marketing program, my hedging? What am I looking at now? Obviously, there's some seasonals in play coming here. Uh,
Yep, and
what are
and
you
this
talking?
is this is where I'm talking to guys a lot, and they get busy, but you still need to check in. And here's what I'm seeing. Okay, so guys are out there planting, and they like the idea that there's upside, and a lot of guys are banking on some sort of June rally. Historically, it's more in your mind than reality. There's been a number of years where a number of things have gone on. Sometimes too hot and dry in June, sometimes too wet and cool, sometimes Ohio Valley floods. Now, where are we this year compared to other years? We are better than expected planting weather, and everything's going full steam. Now, you're going to hear arguments. Everybody knows that we can get this in fast, and that's not bearish anymore. That's a stretch. It gets to be this idea like I will wait for the market to rally, or wait for the markets to rally, and then I'm going to sell everything or sell a portion. And people tend to think, and we talked about this last time, in absolutes this time of year. I'm in the camp where you want, in a year with these kinds of carryovers we have, which are substantial, you want to keep the upside open because of the time of year it is, but you also might want to look at protecting the downside and the strategies that involves. And there's many different directions you can go there. So I'm the exact opposite of what I've been hearing on the phones. The absolute, just wait for something to happen and then do it. What if it never happens and you don't get that chance? So I think this is a gray area. I'm working very hard to lay out strategies for guys every single day that they want to listen, to have the upside open but have the downside protected. And like I say, there's read what you want into it. There's a million different directions that you can go with that and different tools to use. Now, that's my goal, is to protect what you have, even though you might not like the price, but leave it open. So I'm not absolute sort of guy this time of year. Now, I'm not saying there's no room for that, but I don't like how everything really is tilted towards I'm going to do nothing or I'm going to do everything. It just doesn't work very good that way. So I like the percentage where, hey, I have this price level, I'm going to sell. I like the percentage. I'm going to protect this and see what happens. I have insurance on this. I'm going to see what happens with these bushels. You want to blend. That's where, for better marketings, you want to work on blending your strategies, not trying to do 100% of one thing. That can really work out for a guy, in 1 year, and then the next year fall flat on your face. So it's all about bettering the average, and that goes with your strategies. Have a 3-tiered plan, and then work every day to try to make the price better if possible. Like now we got a rally underway. So I'm busy on the phones talking to guys, and we're planning our next move. We're not necessarily doing something today, but if this happens, this is what we're looking at, and just be really flexible this time of year. And that's what you should be. But for me, I still really like the strategies that protect the downside but have the upside open. I think people really overcomplicate things. I don't think it needs to be that way. Anything can happen this time of year. No one knows what the weather is going to be, but it's a very small window. And that's what guys tend to forget, is that you're really looking at the next 6 weeks for very critical decisions to be made. But from 1 week to the next week, it switches so quickly, and you couldn't possibly know the answer, and no one does. So you just work with that no one knows what the weather is going to hold. Anything can happen for the next 6 weeks, and that's just better marketing.
So we've talked a lot about protecting the downside, leave the upside open. It sounds great. It almost sounds too good to be true. There's some examples of what guys have done. How do you do that? Are you selling calls? Are you selling puts? Are you doing a mix of both? Are you doing it with futures? Give me an example of what you do to protect that downside, but leave the upside
Okay,
open.
so this is it's going to be farm by farm. It's going to be different. Guys, risk tolerances are going to be different. You want to look at implied volatility in the options and time of year, and then make your decisions on that. What to do with calls and puts, both sides. Now, where is the implied volatility for corn and beans? It's historically really low right now, which does provide you with your opportunities. And I can't get too much into what those opportunities are, because there's no recommendations that can be given here. But it works both ways. Just because puts are cheap, it means calls are cheap. So it's not like you're choosing one direction over the other direction necessarily. It's like, if you got your bushels covered and you're locked into a price, we're looking at calls. If you have nothing done, you're looking at puts. And then there's a million different varieties of strategies that you can do that combine both those things. So I know that's a really broad net I'm casting, but again, it's every single conversation is going to be a different one. They're going to have common themes, and I'll have a common bias. I do look at the USDA's numbers. I think they're very important. I think the market trades it. But then you're going to have a year like 2019 where the market was completely wrong and the USDA's numbers were completely wrong. I feel that's a terrible crutch to fall on this time of year. I think it's established between basis, it's established between the spreads of what we have left over, and then of course my network that I depend on, to see what's out there. Last 3 years, we've been inverted 35 to 60 cents in corn and beans, May over July. Last year, I think they were both around 32, 35 this time of year. I'll have to go back and look. This year, we're at negative 15 for soybeans today. I think we ended at negative 14 and a half. It shows there's too many beans in the pipeline and not enough demand. Now, you'll find all guys arguing the spreads are wrong. The spreads are wrong. You just don't see these spreads this wide this time of year this often. So I really got my ears to the ground. Are the spreads wrong? Is in the basis is going to roar? I think that's what we're going to see over the next month. What's going to happen here? And again, I can't tell you how critical all this stuff is over the next 6 weeks in between the basis and old crop. But here's what happens with new crop, old crop, which I think is really important. The May contract goes into deliveries. We're going to see what's deliverable. There was heavy deliveries in March. We'll see if that holds true in May. If there isn't, we have a chance at basis appreciation. And if there's heavy deliveries, it's not going to be a good sign at all for the July contract. So that really, and then also it shoots out of the ground pretty soon. Nobody cares about old crop anymore, even if you have it in the bin and it's very important to you. The market focuses on new crop. So that's why I say these 6 weeks are one of the most critical times a year for grain marketing and grain marketing advice, grain marketing ideas. This is where they quit caring about old crop, start focusing on new crop. Unfortunately, we have large carryovers this year, and they've been growing every report. Corn's kind of been hanging in there, but beans have been growing every report. So it just gets to be not as an important story this year on old crop as it has been in the recent past. A lot of guys have a hard time letting that go. If you're storing grains, a guy's betting on this weather window coming up to hopefully get better marketings. If you did this last year, your bet's paid off if you sold. We'll see what happens this year, but again, these next 6 weeks I think are everything.
Yeah, I think it's important to note just a couple things from what you said. One, if there's heavy deliveries, that means that the contract on the board is higher than anyone's getting anywhere else. So they're going to deliver on that price, right? They want to get paid that price because it's higher than anywhere else. Is that the way to phrase that?
Yeah, yep. That's the general premise of it. Now, there's not enough delivery points, and it's not exactly a national thing, but really Chicago is going to drive the futures. So we went into May and we saw deliveries in the past few years. We saw exceedingly light deliveries and no deliveries. So they are a huge deal. And it's going to be a big deal for corn. It's going to be a big deal for beans. We'll see what's left over, what people want to deliver. And to your point, if they don't think they can get, it would indicate poor basis is another way of generalizing it. They can get, they're willing to haul it in and bring it to a delivery point, which takes some work instead of going with the cash market. So that's never a good sign when you see heavy deliveries. And we did see that in May.
You mean
I'm looking
March,
forward to
right? We're
Minneapolis.
in the May.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yep. The March was a bad time window when normally it wouldn't be. So I'm really looking. Here's the three markets I'm looking at for me personally. I like the Minneapolis wheat market, Kansas, Chicago's also going to be interested in the three, but really Minneapolis. And then beans had terrible deliveries, and then corn. Those are basically covers all the grains. But it's going to be a really important for soybeans more than any other market. Have we finally kind of washed through all these beans we've had it sitting around? And there's going to be light deliveries. Well, it gives some hope for the old crop to rally into July, but we'll see. We'll know Monday afternoon a lot more information. That's going to be the first day. It'll close on the regular hours at 1:15. It's actually trades to 1:20 and 1:25 in Minneapolis wheat. Then after that, it goes into the delivery process Monday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's Tuesday. I got to go look at my calendar, but Monday, I believe, and we'll have some more information on that. So for me, I follow spreads. I follow deliveries. I think it's really important for marketing.
Yeah, we should dive into spreads on a future episode and dig deeper in there. But there's a lot you can learn, and of course, like everything else, there's guys that will say they mean everything, and there's guys who will tell you they mean nothing, and the truth's probably
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle of that. But
Oh, absolutely. And it's not gonna hurt you to understand that because it's closely related to basis. And you can only read the tea leaves you're given. In the middle commodity guys, the guys that are buying from the producers, resell for a higher price. There's not a lot of great information out there, and you can only see it in in the spreads. In my opinion, that's where you get the truth. That's where they act like they don't need beans, and then all of a sudden this processor is bidding like crazy because they underbought for the spring and the summer. They're not going to tell you that. They're not going to say, "Hey, just hang on, guys. We're going to be desperately short beans, and we're going to bid you up." You're just never going to hear that. So you use the tools that you have, and that's going to be the spreads and the basis, and just try to read the tea leaves as best as you can to try to anticipate what the next moves are going to be. And of course, like you say, it's an art form more than a reliable pattern that you can just plug into your phone and get trade signals off of.
Yeah, that brings me back to my original question on the, protect the downside, keep the upside open, and you mentioned how there's lots of options to do that, but I think it's also important to point out that that's probably why getting all your ideas out of a newsletter or getting ideas from the coffee shop or there's so many different ways we can help with that recommendations that you can make that they're so individual to each farm. If you're just buying a newsletter and
Yeah.
following newsletter recommendations, I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit, but
Yeah, and that's why I built my business. I believe you gotta talk. You have to communicate, and then no. Okay, so for example, a guy will call me, say, hey, I have 40,000 bushels of corn left. I'm looking for a spot to sell, or what can we do? Should I protect it through this report? Like you just have these conversations, and it changes so fast. That's why I'm not a big put it in one kind of box and then sell it. Everything changes so fast that what you say 1 minute, you're going to need to check in the next and maybe adjust your strategy, maybe throw your strategy away because Russia bombed the ports in Ukraine and things change really rapidly. You just don't know. And that's what I really like about the job is I feel like there's a lot of job security because the market simply changed so fast. You almost need a full-time guy on it. And that's where we come in. That is literally our job to try to find what a guy's looking for. Like I say, I have a bunch of corn I need to sell. Let's look for a spot to get rid of it here. All right, I'll call you next week after we see the planning progress. And you just have this plan after you're talking on the phone, and then you follow through. That's kind of how I built my whole business. I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy talking to guys that like to talk about the markets.
yeah, it's always great to hear from around the nation and what other people are doing and where they're at. On that,
Super
I
interesting.
mean,
Yep.
we both enjoy watching all the markets, and we probably wouldn't be in this business if we didn't enjoy watching the markets throughout the day. Give me a hot trade? What are you watching on the markets right now? Any
Let me Google Twitter really quick, and I will have 5 hot trades for you in just a second.
perfect?
No, just kidding. No, you got markets that are definitely on the move. The livestock, live cattle, feeder cattle, they had that nice report on Friday showing the low placement number, which has got the back end of cattle kind of on fire here. Fronts got some problems, but the back end has been the hot ticket. And then hogs, what are we, 107 in June? Be careful. We might get profitable in the hog industry if we keep going like this. So the meat's kind of been interesting. Definitely on my radar screen. Everybody's talking about cocoa. You know it's a bull market when your buddy texts you and says, "Why aren't we in cocoa?" after it's made one of the biggest moves ever. That's when you know it's a hot market when it's made it out to the mainstream everybody. Uh, and then I reminded him he doesn't have any money in his account, and we can't buy cocoa because the margin's sky high. And a very risky market anyway. But you do get that after markets move for weeks, and it makes it in the mainstream move. You have your buddies you might play golf or fish with. They're wondering why aren't we in cocoa. Cocoa's been talked about a lot. It's really hanging in there. I mean, it's what 1,016 right now, 60. The last I'm looking at September. Quite the market, and then interest rates. Those are the big markets. They've been on a steady march up. It's not been happy news for the mortgage brokers, but interest rates have been another hot market that's really got everybody's attention. They're noticing it in their operating notes this year. Definitely in farming, I've heard a lot about it.
I like it. I think those are some of those. You want to talk a little speculation versus hedging, and that's another conversation we can have. But from the speculation side, I like to watch for those market divergences and maybe see something that's unusual or haven't seen that before.
Yeah, you want volatility, but you don't want too much volatility. And another market that's got everybody kind of not real happy is that wheat market. Just when you give up on it, it starts ripping and it catches like 10 news stories. So wheat's gone into that cycle, which is really interesting because what was it about 3 weeks ago? Russia was dumping all their wheat in the world market to make room for their mega crop that's coming, and all of a sudden it might not look like that. And then we got trouble with the Kansas wheat crop. It changes so fast in wheat, and it zigs when you zag, and vice versa. I mean, it's a market that will get a lot of phone calls, and generally, it's a combination of frustration but acceptance. They just, if you don't sell your wheat now, they know it's going to go lower, and if you hang on to it in the bin, the stories just kind of disappear. Wheat's that market that's just like that. Now, what to do with wheat? Very interesting stuff going on there. We'll talk about that next time.
That sounds perfect. You have anything else for us today, or are we ready to wrap up our first remote episode ever here?
Well, yeah, hopefully it sounded all right, and I could hear my chair squeaking in the background a little bit. Nope, just headed to a baseball game and doing the things you do in springtime. Looking forward to it. I'm really enjoying talking to the guys on the phone as they're planting. You're hearing a lot of interesting information, but the one common theme is everybody seems to be moving pretty good.
Does that mean you're going to be moving the garden from the office out into the ground soon, or where are we at in the garden?
There's been some requests. I wouldn't say it looks super professional. It looks more like a jungle up front right now. I'm going to fish next week, so I see the garden sticking around for another week, and I'll have you water it for me. And then I have to till the garden and actually water it, and there's a lot of steps to actually getting this food to the table. I have my doubts, but I've surprised myself before.
Maybe once or twice only, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of deer around too, where one of the gardens is, but it's an experiment. I think it'll be fun, but it's growing really good. The green peppers haven't come up. I don't know what's going on there.
Man, I guess you don't. You're not a pepper farmer.
I just think they're slow. The peas, I'd say the peas are dominating, though. I mean, pretty soon they're going to take over the whole platform there. I got to get them out of there.
I love it. Well, tell us how to get a hold of you, John. And
218-731-1578.
Perfect. And you can always email us at hedgeheadspod@gmail.com. Thanks again, John.
Yeah, you have any questions?
Or go ahead.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, yeah, you want to say more on the questions before?
Yeah. Email with any questions you have or complaints, like you say, or anything that you think we're not correct in, and we'll be more than happy to talk about it.
Excellent. Thanks again. Have a great weekend. Maybe we'll see you on the lake next week.
Well, I'll try to clean it up.
Yeah, straighten up, John.